Chapter 11. Carter. I'll see you later, okay? Carter gave April a quick kiss before glancing around for his keys. He actually didn't want to leave, which was a weird feeling for him, but he'd promised his buddies he would come for a poker night tonight. April snaked her arms around his neck and cozied up to him. Do you have to go? I feel like I've barely seen you the last few weeks. It was true. The football season would officially start in just a few weeks, which meant that he was practicing nearly every day during the week, crashing at nights and playing catch-up on the weekends. He'd barely had any time for April, though he'd invited her to the last practice. That was more than he'd ever done with any woman before, and he wasn't even sure why. There was just something about April that clicked with him. Forgetting his keys for the moment, he wrapped his arms around her waist and smiled. I know, and I'm sorry, but this poker night has been planned for ages. Jay had actually been bugging him for weeks to come to the game nights, but he'd been too tired to do that as well. Look, tomorrow night is an early practice, so how about I come over after and we order in? Her lips folded into a pout, even as her fingers snaked through the back of his hair. I can't believe you're giving up a night with me to go play poker, but I guess I'll agree on 2 conditions. He bit back his smile. What's that? That I get to pick dinner tomorrow, and you stay the night. I'll see what I can do. He gave her another kiss, lingering this time, before pulling back and heading for the front door. His coat pocket. He'd left his keys in his pocket. Grabbing it from the rack beside the door, he shrugged into it, blew her one more kiss, and stepped out into the crisp fall air. 30 minutes later, he pulled into Jay's driveway, sighing when he realized all the other guys were already there. He was going to hear about his tardiness for sure. Well, look what the cat finally dragged in, Jay said, looking up from his cards as Carter shut the front door behind him. Sorry, traffic was bad. It wasn't a complete lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. He dropped into the open chair at the table and began organizing the chips in front of him. The current round had already started, so he'd be sitting this one out. But that was fine, as it would give him the chance to watch their reaction in tells. Traffic, huh? You sure it wasn't that pretty redhead you brought to the last game? Malone asked with a raised brow. Like Jay, Malone was a friend from college, a fellow football player who'd had his career ended with a pretty gnarly knee injury. He could walk now, but when he got tired, the slight limp he still had became more pronounced. Regardless, the man loved football, and he tried to attend all the local practices and games. Wait, you brought April to the last practice? Jay asked, lowering his cards to the table in order to focus his attention on Carter. Yeah, it was no big deal. She wanted to see the practice field. In reality, it had been kind of a big deal. Carter had never brought a girl to the practice before. Sure, he'd given his tickets to a few women now and then, but bringing a girl to practice felt more serious somehow. Is this the same girl from a few weeks ago? The redhead? Jay's voice had taken on an accusatory tone that sent Carter's defenses bristling. Yeah, so? So how long have you been seeing this girl? I thought you weren't looking to settle down. I'm not looking to settle down. But she's nice and fun. What's the harm? The fourth guy, Noah, who Carter didn't know as well, added his 2 cents as he scanned his cards. The harm is twofold. One is that she's going to think it's serious, and that's never a good thing. Second, it makes it look as if you're off the market. When that happens, it gets harder to get new women when you're... He paused, as if searching for the right words. Ready to move on. Though Carter didn't appreciate Noah's crude implication of dumping women when they bored you, he supposed it was what he typically did, though he liked to think he was saving both himself and the woman from a relationship doomed to fail. However, he could understand the man's first point. He didn't want April to think there was anything serious going on between them. "It's nothing serious, and I'm sure she knows that." "You're sure, huh?" Noah pushed a few chips into the center of the table. "Cool." Then he turned to Carter. "How can you be sure?" Carter shifted in his seat as he thought back over their last few dates. There was nothing concrete he could point to. In fact, as he revisited the moments in his mind, he could see the light in her eyes, the way she hovered near him, the casual touches that seemed to declare much more when combined with the look in her eyes. Oh man, was Noah right? Had he stayed too long with April and made her think he might want something more than a fling? Did he want more than a fling? "Well, we certainly haven't had any conversation about it being serious. In fact, I know I've mentioned more than once that I'm not looking for that." "But did you sleep with her?" Jay tossed a few chips in to keep the round going. "Well, yeah, but then you have to get out now," Noah said. "Women aren't like us. Once you're intimate, they start picturing a future, even if you tell them you aren't looking for that. If you don't want to hurt her more, you should cut ties and run." "Don't you think cutting ties and running would hurt her?" Carter couldn't believe he was actually defending this, but even though he generally did what Noah was describing, the way he said it made it seem so calloused. "Not as much as dragging her along longer and then cutting her loose," Jay said. "I agree with Noah. You've been in this one too long. If you stay much longer, you're going to get sucked in." Carter knew they were right, but why then did a part of him feel desperate to prove them wrong? He glanced at Malone, who had remained silent so far. "What do you think, Malone?" Malone rarely got involved in their talk about women, though Carter had no idea if it was because he didn't agree with them or if he just kept that part of his life private. Malone tossed his chips in the middle to call and glanced up at Carter. "I think you have to decide what you want, but I will say that if you don't see a future with this girl, you should tell her sooner rather than later." Well, it wasn't a flat agreement with Jay and Noah, but it wasn't a firm stance against them either. Though he hadn't been when he arrived, suddenly Carter was conflicted. Were the guys right? Should he stop seeing April so as not to hurt her worse? Or could he keep seeing her as long as he made his relationship position clear? And if the latter was true, what was his relationship position? As Noah took the pot and a new hand was dealt, Carter tried to focus on the cards in front of him, but his mind refused to cooperate.